I'm sure you've seen the news about a George Floyd exhibit, believe it or not, at a Holocaust museum in Florida. There's a special section now devoted to an individual, a tragedy that happened in America. We are not arguing. We know that. A person who was killed by a individual police officer, one police officer who did something terrible. No one is arguing. But what in God's name is the Floyd exhibit doing in a Holocaust museum? The Holocaust, do we know what the Holocaust is? Do we know what the Holocaust represents? Do we understand that 6 million people were murdered systematically in the most brutal way imaginable during the 4 or 5 years when the Nazi regime was involved in carrying out the final solution? There was a plan to get rid of every single Jew in the world, starting with Europe. Men, women, children, pregnant women, grandfathers, grandmothers, it didn't matter. Babies would be thrown in the air and shot at by SS soldiers. The most brutal things happened during that period of time. To desecrate the memory of the 6 million, to have a Floyd exhibition within the Holocaust? It is shameful. It is disgusting. It is a horror. It is inexcusable. It is inexcusable. You want to create an exhibit for Floyd? God bless you. Do it somewhere else. You don't do it in a Holocaust museum. Do it at your local Reform synagogue. Do it anywhere but in a Holocaust museum. My God, how can people be so insensitive to desecrate the memory of my family and the families of millions of people? And it is part of what is happening in America today, very, very sadly. We watched it, especially in recent months. We watched the President of the United States being called Goebbels. Goebbels was the architect, along with Adolf Hitler, for the final solution. Our president being called Goebbels? That was done, by the way, by Biden. How could that happen? And the media not express outrage? That decent Americans all over this country not yell and scream that this is inappropriate? You could call the president whatever you want. Goebbels and others in the Democratic Party calling him Adolf Hitler? And then you had others in the Democratic Party who said the nastiest things relating to the Holocaust. You had a leading journalist for CNN, Amanpour, literally taking the scenes of Nazi Germany in the 1930s and comparing it to the Trump administration. Is this beyond sick? Is this, am I so surprised there could be an exhibition in a Holocaust museum of Floyd when you have all these other things going on? It desecrates the memory of the 6 million, and it needs to stop now. It needs to stop now. It is a horror. It is insulting. Holocaust survivors, those that are still alive all over the world, watching this, the pain that you cause these people. My mother went to Auschwitz in 1944 with her mother, with brothers and sisters, nephews and nieces. The day they arrived at Auschwitz, getting out of the cattle cars, most of my mother's family went straight to the gas chambers. That is the reality of that's the Holocaust. You think that's related to Floyd? You think it is appropriate to have an exhibition of Floyd in a Holocaust museum? Of course not. People were tortured. People were experimented on. Women by the hundreds of thousands were raped, brutalized. Floyd does not belong. An exhibition of Floyd does not belong in a Holocaust museum. It is outrageous. It must stop now.